Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon to everyone out there. It is the Earthmaster here on this finally Friday, March 24th, 2023. It's about 12:08 in the PM out here in Northern California, and the latest earthquake activity on the globe shows a 3.1 coming into the Turkey region as we speak. Before we jump into earthquake activity, kind of want to chat about the pretty intense solar storm last night that surprisingly hit Earth. Was not forecasted to be this strong, and it's kind of funny because these guys are unclear of what specifically caused it. A lot of weird stuff going on in space these days. So G4 conditions were reached last night with the KP index of around 8. Normally in this type of category, the G4 conditions, we can see auroras as low as Alabama and Northern California with a 45-degree geomagnetic latitude. Now, I was out here last night just seeing if I could see anything from my backyard in Northern California. I did not, but apparently certain areas of Oregon did. Missouri, Colorado, Nebraska. This image right here that the spaceweather.com site is showing is from the Shenandoah National Park in central Virginia. Looks like from Peter there, took that shot. Beautiful image of the pillars. Really awesome imagery. Also appreciate the ones that were sent in from the folks there on the email. I did get those, and absolutely stunning photos as well. There's also a little condition here called Steve. Now, that it's not really an aurora. It's a different phenomenon called the strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. Pretty cool, huh? Now, this is caused by 3,000 Celsius degree ribbons of gas flowing through Earth's magnetosphere at speeds exceeding 13,000 miles per hour. These ribbons appear during strong geomagnetic storms, revealing themselves by their soft purple glow. So that's an example here of a Steve that was observed in South Dakota, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Scotland earlier this morning and last night. Pretty cool. Some interesting stuff. Definitely kicked off. According to the spaceweather.com site, this remarkable and surprising storm began yesterday when the magnetic fields in the space around Earth suddenly shifted. Now what happens is this allows the solar wind stream to flow right in, allowing these elevated conditions. The BZ component tipped south. South-pointing magnetic fields can open a crack in Earth's magnetosphere, and indeed that's what happened. So the shields were down and allowed this major event to take place. Category 4. There has been stronger ones, but this is about the about the strongest one in 6 years. It's very possible we could be looking at more of these as we peek into the solar maximum here in a couple years. They believe the developments here may have been caused by the close passage of an unexpected CME. But, I don't know. I mean, if anything, I think this has to do with the coronal hole that's been facing us, but it wasn't squared up, and a lot of times the Earth does a good job of preventing a lot of these things from happening, right? We got that magnetosphere for a reason, but goodness, quite the surprise. Just goes to tell you there that I don't think anyone can accurately 100% forecast anything, get a little certain degree of it, but when you got the professionals saying they did not see this happening, there you go. Well, since then, things are kind of calming down. The solar ham site here indicating that activity last night doesn't quite show it peaking up here into the 8, but it did right about, on one of these graphs, we were up there around the KP index of 8. And it's been a while since I've seen it up that high with the threshold of the G4 storming that we've seen. Even Kevin here said, I did not see this coming. All right. It happens, right? I guess when we're least expecting it. So what else do we have going on right now? Do we have any more in the forecast? Doesn't look likely. things have kind of mellowed out drastically here since last night and this morning. Notice the KP index only around 2 or so. So very minimal activity at best right now. It looks like it may remain unsettled over the next couple nights here, according to the 3-day geomagnetic forecast. We'll continue to watch that. But I don't think we're going to see any major events popping off right now. Who knows, though, unless we get a little surprise there from everything that's going on out here in the world. All right, solar flare activity is fairly minimal. Looking at the last 3 days of activity shows only very minimal C flare activity here on the sun. We do have numerous sunspots here facing the Earth. A look at their magnetic structure shows a little bit of growth here within this center complex over the last 24 hours. So we'll keep this in mind. It is directly facing Earth and somewhat in line with the Earth-Sun plane. Also up here in the north, getting a little bit of further complex structure in a couple of these sunspots. So they were looking like they were just going to fade away, but overnight looks like they kind of peaked up a little bit with the new sunspot here being observed just south of 3260 on the sun. So we'll watch that. Looks like another development over here. We'll watch these in the coming days, folks, and see what they become. 90% chance of a C flare, M flare at 10% chance, X around 1%. And the coronal hole that I believe was somewhat responsible there for last night's activity, somewhat. There was other factors involved there, along with that BTBZ component, but that's kind of going away. And we are left with maybe another coronal hole out here, it looks like. Centered, yeah, maybe not. That's their more of a prominence feature. So yeah, we'll just continue to watch this and see how it plays out in the coming days. But some beautiful imagery, no doubt. All right, earthquake activity. Jumping out here to the big island of Hawaii, where they had an earthquake swarm last night at the Mauna Loa area. Since about midnight my time, that has since died off completely. But we did have about 22 earthquakes, including a 3.9 on the northeastern flank here of Mauna Loa volcano. Some of these magnitudes down there where we expect magma to be on the move. Some shallow, but some deep. The majority of these are roughly between 4 to 6 kilometers deep, indicating some possible movement below this area. So continue to watch that. We haven't really seen anything from the USGS volcanoes as far as any notification in regards to the activity. In fact, the one today still shows Kilauea daily update from yesterday. No new updates put out yet. Possible they may a little bit later on this afternoon. We'll cover that in the update a little bit later tonight. But things don't appear to be elevated enough to issue any type of warranted statement for now. All right, earthquake activity getting back out of here. Since midnight, we've seen the swarm pick up here around the Pahala area. Very typical movement around the southeastern flank down here. Let's see what else we got for earthquake activity. Any large-scale events overnight? Doesn't look like it. Still seeing some movement around the Turkey area in the Middle East. One earthquake down here in the Tonga region, 5.6. We're kind of expecting that, although that's a little bit more deeper than what we were kind of looking for. We did see quite a bit of deep activity out here over the last week or so. With minimal adjustment, I was expecting to see some larger activity up here around the subduction level of the surface. But this one came in as 281 kilometers deep, about 6 o'clock in the morning for a 5.6. All right, let's jump into the states here, see what we got going on throughout the Pacific Northwest. A couple of smaller quakes around Mount St. Helens again. Nothing major. These look to be very small, very minimal earthquake activity, but a little bit of uptick. Let's go ahead and check out the tremor map here from yesterday. That was 0. Volcanic seismicity map of Mount St. Helens. Give us a indicator of what's going on out here. And we'll check this one out here. Excuse me. Still a little bit under the weather, but getting better every day. All right. There's some of that earthquake activity here Looks like maybe one within the last couple hours, some smaller ones as well over this time period. Slight uptick in earthquake activity around Mount St. Helens, but nothing of concern. Mount Hood, what do we got here at Mount Hood? A little earthquake activity as well. It looks like this one coming in this morning as well, about 9 o'clock or so. A couple earthquakes between 4 and 6 kilometers, well south of the Hood area, but still within that zone. Let's see what we got here for the Mount Hood area. And I'm going to check out, I can't remember which ones work out here. I believe one of these will work, hopefully. That's a interesting name there. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, this one's a little out of whack. Hard to tell. I'm thinking some of these right here may be the earthquakes, but this looks like some type of outside interference. Let me check up here around the summit. Of course, the Palmer Lift area, that may show some interference as well. But we'll take a look at it and see. I just kind of want to cover this just in case there's some type of activity going on that's not being reported. Goodness, okay. That looks like some huge wind event going on up there. Definitely some interference. Hard to tell if there's any earthquake activity, but it doesn't really look like it for now. All right, Northern California, typical areas around Clear Lake Volcanic Field active. Bay Area, very quiet. Still seeing a little bit of movement here across the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault and areas to the west around the Oceanic Fault here. Nothing major. A couple small microquakes kicking off yesterday and today. A little swarm of activity here just south of Ridgecrest. All this activity from yesterday within a very short time of each other. Nothing major going on. Just a couple small quakes there in that area as well. Kicking up here south of the Borrego Springs area, looks like overnight and this morning so far. Got about 36 earthquakes in this little swarm near the Pinion Ridge, it looks like, just off the one of the fragments of the Elsinore Fault Zone, the Julian section, Earthquake Valley Fault. Oh, goodness, don't know if I'd want to live down there or not. Don't know if I'd want to live anywhere in Southern California. Kind of dangerous down there. Let's see what we got for main quake out here. Largest magnitude. Looks like a 3.5, 3.0. A couple other smaller quakes in there as well. And it may seem like a lot of aftershock activity for a very small quake, such as a 3.5. But a lot of times here in Southern California, that's very typical. We'll see a 3-pointer trigger a little swarm of activity or aftershock activity following that main event. But sometimes it's hard to tell if this is just not, seismic increasing pressure out here in Southern Cal. Swarms do sometimes forecast, larger quakes in the vicinity. So kind of watch that today, considering that little swarm. Nothing really around the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. This activity here to the west of the plate boundary is a good 30 miles or so to the west here. Nothing on the San Andreas Fault for now. One little earthquake near the Salton Sea area, just off the southern end of the San Andreas, but a 1.5. We'll watch this area for some further swarming throughout the day today. Yellowstone National Park, not showing too much activity up there. Check out the thumbnails, and there, not a whole lot. Looks fairly quiet there. Looks like that swarm that we had seen a few days ago is kind of back down. Not seeing any unusual activity here across the area. Down in Texas and Oklahoma area, very minimal activity. The New Madrid seismic zone got a little 1.4 from yesterday. There's not a whole lot of activity kicking up there across that area of the New Madrid seismic zone. And, we can check out any number of these seismograph stations here to just kind of pinpoint, or show the activity or lack thereof of activity. This is kind of hard to tell what it is. One would think maybe that's earthquake activity within the vicinity of that seismograph station, but we'll go ahead and check a nearby one and see if that's got the same type of readings on it. Doesn't look like it. Looks fairly calm. Hard to say sometimes why some seismographs will give off a weird reading and others not so much. But I think it's just right around that area with that seismograph station that's maybe having an issue. Because all these other seismograph stations look fairly calm across the New Madrid seismic zone. All right, let's see here. Go back to earthquake activity. Puerto Rico region, a couple smaller quakes here today. It doesn't look like there's too much activity ramping up. Things fairly minimal across the Caribbean plate area. We did have a 4.4 coming in just a bit ago into the Atlantic Ocean. That is the divergent boundary out here. Not showing up yet on the USGS map. 2.5 over here in, let's see where this is at. Pyrenees area. 2 kilometers. Just outside of France, it looks like. Nothing major. A look at the regional activity here today across the Mediterranean. Still looks fairly active, but it's been like this for a little while. Turkey earthquake activity will continue with all that aftershock movement. South America region getting some 2s and 3s, somewhat deep down here along the Peru-Chile Trench. Alaska activity looks fairly quiet up here today. A couple 2s up there, even a 3-pointer. Let's see what we got across the area of the Japan region. We did have some movement yesterday into the Izu Trench here, the Izu Islands. A little swarm of activity, kind of upstream here of the subduction zone level itself. That could be an indicator of some definitely stress building up there in that region. We have seen some deeper movement quakes here over the last couple weeks, so watch this zone potentially for some larger scale movement. 4.7 just off the, well, that's inland. Somewhat deep there, 84 kilometers into the Japan Trench, north of Tokyo, Japan. Kuril-Kamchatka Trench looks pretty quiet up north for now and around the Indonesia area. A couple scattered earthquakes out there today. And about the same here on the Earthquake 3D globe. Nothing going on across the northern end of the Java Trench or across the Himalayas today. New Zealand area looks pretty quiet according to the Earthquake 3D globe, but just for verification, we'll go ahead and check out the GeoNet servers there today and see what's going on. Here's their list of earthquakes. Most of it looks like it is centered on the North Island, New Zealand area. Right outside, or right to the south of the Bay of Plenty area. It doesn't look like anything major kicking up overnight. Look at the drums here across the area. Yeah, a couple of smaller quakes here. This kind of looks like it's, let's see here, not centered around Taupo supervolcano, but more so around this area. Not for sure how to say that word, but a little bit of earthquake activity ramping up down here just south of Taupo supervolcano. You can see that movement kind of showing up here across some of those seismograph stations there in the North Island, New Zealand area. Let's see where this is at. This activity kind of looks like it's more centered around the just east of the Taupo region. Look at this earthquake, kind of a long duration quake here. See that kind of kicked off here, continuing, and then another one. It's a little odd. Sometimes it kind of looks like when we see that type of activity, that could be magma movement, but it's kind of hard to say currently with this type of activity there across New Zealand. Let me see here. Yeah, we'll have to check back on that and see what's going on. Again, nothing major, but still a little bit of uptick, elevated uptick here overnight across North Island. We'll continue to watch that. Doesn't look like it's anything too big because EMSC is not reporting it, and goodness. All right, we'll just we'll look at that a little bit later. See what's going on there. Anything else out here aside from Turkey and the Iran area from yesterday? They've seen that 5.6. Largest one so far in Turkey, a 4.4 this morning. It looks like 10 kilometers deep. Alrighty, well, today is Friday. I think I don't know what I'm gonna do today. I still have some schoolwork I got to get done since I skipped out on it yesterday. I was out there watching some thunderstorms out here in Northern California. Kind of popped up out of the blue, which is always nice. It's been crazy weather out here this winter in California. Of course, tornado down in Los Angeles, temporary tornado, a little small one, but it stirred up some nerves and tore up a couple roofs down there. So probably work on that a little bit. And I may barbecue. I don't know. Haven't really been in a barbecue mood since I've been had this little head cold here. But anyway, I hope everyone enjoys their Friday. If you have the day off, the weekend off, take advantage of it. Weather out here. Well, let's see what we got here for weather. Windy is an app that I do like to use quite often. Gives a very good broad view of the world and the current conditions, the upper level winds, temperatures out here. Looks like the majority of the country is somewhat into the colder environment, except for down into Texas and the Gulf Coast states. Looks like around the 70s and 80s with that moisture coming up out of the Gulf. A good sign of spring and summer coming up. Of course, that will only add to some severe weather threats as the weeks go on. Looking at the Storm Prediction Center, let's see what we got here real quick. Looks like a pretty good moderate risk of severe weather over there today into portions of the south. Looks like Tennessee, Arkansas region getting in on some activity as well, with a moderate risk of severe weather and also tornado potential as well. 15% out there. Not for sure if this is on. I think this is going on right now. Let's see here. Most likely time period for strong tornadoes is between 5 p.m. and midnight. That's going to be your time out there in the central time zone. So, yeah, in a couple hours, folks, get prepared if you're out there in that region. Wind event, hail possibility as well. And that is for today, Friday. Looking towards the weekend. Doesn't look like too much, but day 7 here, goodness, that's a ways out. Day 7 has a 15% probability already of a severe threat. That's crazy. You don't see that too often there on the extended forecast like that. So something must be setting up here for a severe weather threat on day 7. I'll put this into motion, see what we got that far out. Day 7 would be roughly around in there. But it doesn't look like, well, there's cold air, low pressure. Of course, again, this is all subject to change. Looks like it may shift east, though. Kind of hard to tell, though. We'll cover that a little bit later on. I'm looking for a pretty good setup to go out there and do a little bit of weather observing. I just don't know. I don't like really going down to the south here because there's too many trees and very dangerous when it comes to the tornado potential at night in the trees in the jungle, a lot of people call it. Kind of looking for a setup out here around Oklahoma, northern Texas, maybe Kansas area. And of course that will advance a little bit northward as we head towards spring, later spring and into summer up here. All right, jump off here. Have a good Friday, folks. We'll catch you guys back here later tonight. Take care and have a good one.